We're getting off to a busy start here on Storm Center on this Monday with breaking news. Thanks for being with us tonight. I'm meteorologist Jackie Jarris.
And I'm meteorologist Chris Warren talking about a flash flood emergency in Alabama. Chris Bruin's on the radar. He's going to have that in just a moment. But this, the tropics. A tropical storm, newly named Tropical Storm Bret.
Yeah, so if you're just joining us, our tropical depression number 3 is now Tropical Storm Bret. We want to get right over to our hurricane expert, Dr. Rick Knabb, staying late for us to give us the very latest. Dr. Knabb.
Yeah, Jackie and Chris, this is definitely unprecedented in terms of where Bret has formed this early in the season. This tropical storm with max winds at 40 miles an hour has crossed 40 degrees west longitude. It's about a little more than halfway from Africa to the Windward and Leeward Islands, but it is far enough east that it is now the farthest east that we've ever had a June tropical storm to form in the main development region, and the earliest as well. So this is consistent with the fact that we've got record-setting warm Atlantic sea surface temperatures, and as it sits to the south of a ridge, moving pretty quickly to the west at about 20 miles an hour. And that general motion will continue all the way until it goes near or over a portion of the Windward and Leeward Islands sometime late Thursday and early Friday. But the winds of tropical storm force could start arriving in those islands as early as Thursday morning or later in the day on Thursday. So hurricane watches could go up for those islands tomorrow. And the general trend of strengthening is not a surprise given how warm those waters are and how weak the wind shear is, both anomalously so for this time of year. So the previous two storms that formed that were earliest and farthest east were Elsa 2021 and the Trinidad hurricane of 1933. Both of those storms that formed that far east went on to become hurricanes. Now Bret, forming a little earlier and even farther east, its forecast to become a hurricane will be only the third June main development region storm to go on and become a hurricane. There's the warm waters, is headed toward even warmer waters. All of them are record-setting in terms of how above average they are. And it's moving west south of that ridge, and then we don't have hurricane hunters in there just yet. They'll fly in on Wednesday, but the satellite estimates are enough based on the last visible images of the day for them to declare this a tropical storm. And any point in the islands, 20, 30, 40% chance of getting winds of tropical storm force in the next 5 days, but there's a lot that could go differently. A stronger storm would probably go farther to the north, a weaker storm probably farther to the south, and all of those possibilities are still on the table. But Chris Bruin, this is going to be an impactful system and in a record-setting fashion this early in the year.
Yeah, so people who have travel plans there in the Caribbean definitely need to pay close attention to what's going on over the next several days. We got time to watch it here in the U.S., but before we get to any more of the tropics, we got to talk about what's going on actively right now. Look at all the severe thunderstorm warnings we're seeing from the mid-Atlantic, including up just west of Washington, D.C., to the Gulf Coast and Texas, and the flash flooding, which has been really one of our bigger stories today, including tornadoes that we've seen along the Gulf Coast from Gulf Shores to also southern Mississippi and near Destin. In fact, Sandestin reporting a tornado. I want to show you the radar right now. We still have an ongoing flash flood emergency, guys. This is as extreme as it gets when it comes to rainfall and flooding. And like last week, what we had in Pensacola, this time we're about 50, 60 miles to the west in southern Alabama, just south of Mobile. And that is where we've got the flash flood emergency for parts of Baldwin and Mobile counties, say around Fairhope, just south of there towards Foley, Alabama, areas around Bayou Labatre, Theodore, and Barnwell. I've seen homes that the crawl space is definitely taking on water. The basement likely has water, and water getting up to the front steps of the porch. In some cases, water even getting into the home. That's the kind of situation we've been dealing with. The rain has lightened up somewhat, but now we've got another heavy band of storms coming right on over some of the hardest hit areas on the south side of Mobile. So look at Bayou Labatre, and anywhere in the last 6 hours, we've seen close to 9, even 10 inches of rain. Think about that. In about 6 hours, close to 10 inches of rain, and it is still raining out there. Look at all these reports of flash flooding, especially along U.S. Highway 90, parts of I-10, also here south of I-10 on the east side of the bay near Foley, Fairhope, and Point Clear, Alabama. Even near Gulf Shores, we've seen some significant rainfall, and especially with that sandy beach soil near Dolphin Island and Gulf Shores, that's where you can have some significant flooding as well. In fact, in Theodore, spotter reporting anywhere from 2 to 3 feet of water covering parts of U.S. Highway 90 at times. Take a look at Irvington. Social media is showing a video of rising water approaching homes here in Irvington, Alabama. And I want to show you this camera. If we can pull up RIM 4, not only are we dealing with flooding from heavy rainfall, but there's been a persistent wind, and that has caused water to even overwash some of the lanes on US 90 and eastern parts of Mobile. Take a look at this. Look at the traffic. Look at how high the bay is. Do you see that? Chris is over here saying, whoa. So this looks off towards the west. You can see the storms. We haven't had the amount of rainfall in this exact location like we've seen south, but notice how high the bay is there at that intersection, which is typically, if there's an incoming tropical system, you can see something like this.
Do you see the water going up on that car right
look at how high it is. I mean, it looks like there's some sort of public utility vehicle there either blocking that lane or kind of directing traffic. But man, it's a rough day here in Alabama, and the rain is not moving. That's the problem. You're watching this scene, and it's even worse south of there where we've had much higher rainfall totals. So I want to show you some of the warnings. We've also been monitoring not just the flooding, about severe thunderstorm warnings. We've been tracking some ongoing tornado warnings. Those, at least for the time being, have been allowed to expire, but we do have a tornado possible here for Jackson County, Mississippi, in Ocean Springs and Pascagoula. So very heavy rain, and notice the movement of that storm is kind of meandering, stationary. And we've also had flood reports in Miami. Now, things have improved somewhat in downtown Miami. However, I'm not liking the looks of these storms in northern Broward County and also in southern Palm Beach County. Notice there's not a lot of movement with them. So we could see, again, a situation unfold where we get some significant rainfall. A brand new severe thunderstorm warning also being posted now to the north and west of Fort Lauderdale. This is for southern Palm Beach County and northern Broward County along U.S. Highway 27. So kind of there between the toll plaza on Alligator Alley and just south of Lake Okeechobee. But right now, Boca Raton probably taking on standing water and ponding in spots. If this continues for another hour or so, wouldn't be surprised if they were to go under a flash flood warning. And North Carolina, another spot that's been hit hard with rainfall. At least here, the rain is quieting down somewhat, but it's this plume of rain coming from the south, almost due north, linear fashion here along the I-95 corridor getting into Raleigh. Well, that dumped a lot of rain here in Greensboro, North Carolina, and did produce a flash flood warning. Still some ongoing flash flooding, but the rain has lightened up, so hopefully over the next hour or two, this will improve. North Carolina, though, is going to be a spot to watch this week. We could see double-digit rainfall totals here from the upstate of South Carolina into western parts and central North Carolina, as well as Virginia. With this pattern we're in, expect some very wet weather in Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia. Things are going to be interesting here around New Orleans. We think overnight tonight, could we see a significant flash flood potential? There is that threat. And then we've got to watch severe weather tomorrow morning and getting down into northern and central Florida, Tampa, Crystal River, Orlando. That could include you as well as Jacksonville. Even here around the Georgia coast, Savannah, Hilton Head Island, and even Charleston, strong storms. So a very active pattern here, especially in the southeast and even up towards the mid-Atlantic. Chris?
And Chris, one of America's most popular beach destinations was hit by a tornado today, and officials are surveying the damage in Sandestin, Florida. Katie Feeney joins us from Walton County Emergency Management. Thank you so much for your time. And can you give us an idea of what crews are finding right now and what's the latest, please?
Hey, Chris, thank you so much for having us. Again, my name is Katie Feeney. I'm the operations coordinator here at Walton County Emergency Management. We just experienced a potential tornado. We are still waiting for National Weather Service to come out and do their official assessments of the damage. However, we did have our crews out there. My partner Justin and I went out there to survey some of the damage within the Sandestin area as well as Mac Bayou neighborhoods. Thankfully, we saw minimal damage. I think there were only about 2 homes that had minimal damage. damage to them. Lots of trees down, lots of power outages. Hopefully we'll be back up and running with all of our power within the next hour or so. But thankfully, it did not turn out the way that we have seen in the past. So thankfully, no injuries and no deaths have been reported from this incident.
That sure is fortunate. What's next?
Yeah, what's next is we want both residents and visitors. We have about 17 million visitors that visit South Walton each year. And right now we're in the peak of tourism season. So we want to make sure that our residents and visitors are safe. We want them to make sure that they're getting all the updates with our Alert Walton system. You can sign up on our website, waltoncountyem.org. And then just keep an eye out. We want to be weather aware. We want to make sure that our residents and visitors are prepared for the upcoming severe weather that we've had, throughout this past week and into this week. So just staying weather aware, making sure that all of your phones are charged and your family has a plan.
Walton County sees a lot of different types of weather, and for better and for worse. Is there anything with this particular event that stands out to you?
Yeah, so, this particular event we did have a few months ago, we had an EF1 tornado that did come through a similar region. And, what we look for is obviously the waterfront areas. We did see that and maybe you have seen the viral video that did go through of a potential water spout that did come up onto shore. And, we're just looking for that. We're looking for these high hazard areas, any coastal areas that could potentially produce a rotation as such that we saw today. So again, we also are flying double red flags. It is a $500 fine if you get in the water. So we want to urge to our visitors, do not get in the water. It is not safe. And I'm sure that our South Walton Fire District friends will definitely appreciate that as well.
All right, Walton County Emergency Management, Katie Feeney, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, let's head over to Jackie.
All right, we want to switch gears and talk a little bit more about what happened over the weekend. We've got a bird's eye view now of storm damage that happened in Louisville, Mississippi. This is drone video showing you the destruction that was brought on by a large tornado hitting the small town overnight Sunday. It's about 65 miles to the east of Jackson. As you can see, it left severe damage to several structures. It left several people hurt in the aftermath. Wow, and so many huge trees damaged here as well. Now, this is another view of the storm's impact in Louisville. This video showing you the massive amounts of chickens, many of which did not make it, but there you can see some of them certainly did in the wake of the tornado. So this is another example of the power and impact the damaging winds can cause. Winds were so strong in Tulsa, they sent a tree crashing down onto this home on Sunday. Listen as the homeowner walked us through the startling discovery.
So when I walked in, it's just sort of like you think about a tree through your roof and you just think, like a tree coming through, but you don't really sort of think about all the insulation, all the dust. I mean, the entire bay window was blown out. There's like glass and debris and just rafters. I mean, it looked like a total war scene. Just like, it did not look like my living room. And then, to look up and see sort of a 5 foot by 3 foot opening to the sky and massive tree limbs coming through, it's just heartbreaking, right? You keep trying to remind yourself it's just stuff, right? But it's like heartbreaking because it's your home, right?
It is heartbreaking for sure, and we all have so many memories and things that we want to keep from our homes. So this was all part of a huge complex of thunderstorms that rolled through eastern parts of Oklahoma. Haven't heard official word yet, but it may be considered what was a derecho. Maximum winds clocked here in Tulsa at 100 miles per hour. So those straight line winds certainly can cause as much, if not more, damage than tornadoes at times. Manford, Oklahoma, 90-mile-per-hour gusts there, and then Breckenridge, Oklahoma at 73 miles per hour. And there you can see all of these were into northern parts and northeastern parts of the state. Still have a lot of folks without power. It's been hot across parts of the South. So we're talking nearly 200,000 customers, many of which are in the Tulsa metro area. Remember, a customer is a household. It could be a business. It could be an apartment complex. They're working to try and get that power restored. But also notice a few other areas where increased coverage of outages are right here in the northeastern Texas Texas, northwestern Louisiana, and here near Jackson, Mississippi. This shows you the progression in the areas where we had storm damage and storm reports in the last 48 hours. So over the weekend, nearly 1,000 severe weather reports. 1,000. That's a very high number. And this is what it looks like on radar throughout the event as this all unfolds. And you can really see that spin here still. So that's all part of that upper disturbance. It's not going to be moving a whole heck of a lot over the next couple of days and keeping the threat of severe weather in place for some parts of the southeast. This shows you all of the tornado reports, some of which have been confirmed, but also some of which are still in process of being surveyed. Chris?
All right, I want to update everybody on the flash flood emergency still underway right now in far southern Alabama, just south of Mobile proper. Mobile, you've only had an inch or two of rain. South of there, though, by about 10-15 miles, we've seen nearly 10 inches of rain in about a 6-hour time span, and it is still raining. I'm not liking this trend of more rain kind of feeding in. It does appear the whole complex is slowly shifting south. Now the worst of the weather is right along the immediate beaches there from Dauphin Island back over towards coastal Mississippi. But a catastrophic threat here, a life-threatening situation with homes starting to take on water in southern parts of Baldwin County here in Alabama near Bayou La Batre, nearly 10 inches of rain. I want to show you the scene in Mobile right now as roads have taken on water, and look how high the bay is.
This is the cutting edge of meteorological research.
Something out there is swatting planes out of the sky.
What they found was incredible.
There's one notorious phenomenon that could be to blame.
Could the culprit behind many of the world's most mysterious events be our Earth?
Forget the Bermuda Triangle. This is the Nevada Triangle.
Prime Suspect Earth. All new episodes. Saturday nights, 8/7 Central. Only on the Weather Channel.
New video just into the Weather Channel showing you the heavy flooding hitting Mobile Bay, Alabama. Multiple roads are closed across the bay as torrential rain pours into the region. In some areas, the floodwaters reached between 2 and 3 feet. Meteorologist Chris Bruin is on the radar tracking where we've had a flash flood emergency, Chris.
Yeah, these are people's yards. This is what it looks like when you walk out your front porch. Imagine, I mean, this is not something you see unless you've been in maybe a tropical system. And even then, this is a pretty rare situation, especially in this part of the country where you have sandy soils. You don't typically get flash flooding to this magnitude like you do in, say, other parts of the country because of the ground type. But when you get it set up like we have, it is serious, and you need to take this very seriously. All right, so there's a look at our flash flood emergency, still ongoing. I was taking a look at some of the road situations. A lot of roads are just impassable right now, especially around Point Clear, just south of Fairhope near Barnwell, and then over here in south of Mobile, kind of in between Mobile and Dauphin Island near Bayou La Batre. So Baldwin and Mobile counties, the southern extent of those counties, are under that flash flood emergency catastrophic threat where we've seen close to 10 inches of rain in the last 6 hours, and it's still raining. I want to update the situation here in Texas. We do have a newer severe thunderstorm watch in the Hill Country. It does include San Angelo and just west of the I-35 corridor. Look at this cell that has popped up, and you can tell it's intensifying by the amount of lightning that you're seeing. A flash flood warning, too, has also been included just east of Menard, Mason, McCulloch, and there in Menard counties. A considerable threat tag for large destructive hail and that damaging wind potential upwards of 60 to 70 miles per hour. Jackie?
This is what you don't want to happen during an outdoor event. My goodness. This is central China, where a freak storm blew off a restaurant canopy earlier this month. You can see the guests and workers frantically trying to hold it down. Oh, but to no avail. Several people were injured after being flung into the air.
And now here in the summer months, a lot of outdoor events, and it's important, of course, to keep your eye on the weather and be aware, and you want to be prepared as well, because storms like that can disrupt your plans in a hurry.
It happens. Our guest Aaron Shook knows all about this. He's the owner of Perfect Storm Moments in Seattle, which handles all types of different outdoor events. I imagine when we say perfect storm, you're not actually looking to have a stormy time at your event, Aaron.
No, indeed not. But we liked the name for a lot of different reasons, and it's fitting here in the Northwest.
And are all your clients in the Pacific Northwest? And if so, what are some of the big hazards that you have to watch out for?
We're based out of the Pacific Northwest, but we do travel anywhere we're needed. But majority of our weddings and events are here in the Northwest. And the biggest thing we look out for is rain, but we're pretty comfortable with that. I think rain, wind, and smoke are our three things that we really battle most through the wedding season.
It's difficult, and I will say, you know, being in the forecasting business, we get asked all the time, well, is it going to rain 5 months from now on my wedding day? Everybody wants a perfect sunny day. How do you go with a plan B, or how do you arrange for these types of outdoor events when weather is such a big player?
Yeah, I mean, as a planner and primarily wedding space, the rain, everybody wants an outdoor wedding. We have a very short window for those here in the Northwest, but we inevitably go into it with a rain plan. And typically the rain plan involves tenting. We've got some really great tenting companies we work with here throughout the Northwest that are well-versed at those emergency tent placements when needed.
Now, you don't get a ton of heat in the Pacific Northwest, not like what we're seeing in Texas, but it can get dangerously hot. What's the plan for heat and those concerns?
Yeah, heat, I would say, is the thing that kind of sneaks up on us the most because we, here in the Seattle area, especially, we don't get too many days that are, heat warnings, but it does happen. And, we try to get awnings, canopy umbrellas, things like that in place if we know it's going to be a super hot day. If we have the ability to move indoors and it's super, a real hot day, we'll move indoors where possible.
We have 15 seconds left. Have you ever canceled an event because of weather?
I have had events that have had sudden movements, mostly because of smoke, but not because of weather, and not that we've had to cancel.
Interesting.
Interesting, yeah. Aaron Shook, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. And good luck this summer. Hope everything goes well for you, owner of Perfect Storm Moments.
We are always wishing sunny skies for all those people as they plan their events, that's for sure.
Right. And right now, seeing the tropics really heating up here. A lot of activity in the Atlantic, including newly named Tropical Storm Bret. It was just named within the past hour, coming up at 40 after the hour. We're going to talk about the impacts tropical weather can have on travel plans that include cruises and how the industry plans around these storms. Now, let's look at southern Louisiana. Wow, look at this scene right here. Large water spout. This was spotted over Lake Pontchartrain. The intense scene here captured along I-10, the I-10 twin span bridge yesterday in Slidell, which is northeast of New Orleans, just a little way, just across the bridge, if you will. Could see more of this week, more active weather across a lot of the southeast. For that, let's head to meteorologist Chris Bruin for a look at what's happening right now on the radar.
Yeah, Chris, there's a lot going on. We've been monitoring our breaking weather alert system here at the Weather Channel. Several severe thunderstorm warnings. We've had some tornado warnings, even confirmed tornadoes earlier today, and flash flooding becoming a real threat. And in fact, we do have a flash flood emergency that has just now been extended in southern Alabama. So the problems, they're not going away just yet. This is the reason. This whole cluster of thunderstorms from southern Mississippi through southern Alabama is just parked over this part of the country and has not been able to let up. Now, things have slowly improved, but we're still getting rain in areas that have seen way too much of it. We've got some heavier storms pushing through I-65. The one thing we've got to watch, notice how this whole system is kind of going like this, and then you're starting to get backfill with some of the moisture here in southern Mississippi. Eventually, the guidance is bringing a lot of this over into Louisiana as we head into the overnight hours tonight. So New Orleans, I would pay close attention to the forecasts, especially over the next 12 to 24 hours, because things there could get interesting, especially if a setup like this were to happen there around Lake Pontchartrain. All right, so there's Mobile. This is about 10, 15 miles to your south. That's where the significant rain has been. Things over the last couple of hours have somewhat improved. We still have some light rain here in parts of Baldwin and Mobile counties. Take a look at the estimated rainfall totals, and the key is just in the last 6 hours. Not to mention how much rain this area has seen really over the last week. It's been very active. We've had huge thunderstorm clusters come through, one back to back to back. It seems like every other day. And we're continuing to get that here in southern parts of Alabama and the Florida Panhandle. Remember last week on Friday morning, it was Pensacola dealing with the flash flood emergency. Here we go again, not Pensacola, but this time South Mobile. So look at some of these reports that we've been getting in southern parts of Baldwin and Mobile counties. A Mobile Greyhound being reported, multiple roads impassable for dozens of spots south of a line near Three Notch Road due to flooding, and also vehicles taking on water and even being stalled. We've been watching the situation here in South Florida. We did have flooding reported in Miami. While things have improved there we go. I just mentioned last 20 minutes ago, this was an area to watch in Boca Raton. You're now under a flood advisory because of some of these tropical heavy downpours that are kind of just meandering around parts of Palm Beach and Broward counties. All right, let's take a look at a wet Carolina pattern this week. I think North Carolina, Jackie, could be quite problematic.
Yes, a lot of rain expected this week with frequent downpours and thunderstorms. I'm joining you virtually right now from a very stormy Raleigh, North Carolina. So hopefully most of your plans are going to be indoors, or that at least you have a plan B, because this is what it's going to look like a whole lot through a good portion of the week. So as we take a look at the forecast here, there you can see the temperatures are going to be cooler in the 70s the next couple of days. We'll warm up a bit into the weekend, but look at that. Chances of rain will continue off and on all week. Now, because that low is not going to be moving a whole heck of a lot, we're going to get winds coming in from the south-southwest, and that pumps all the moisture in from the Gulf of Mexico, leading to these hefty amounts. We could be talking about a half of a foot, even a foot of rain potentially in some isolated areas. And as we look at the water vapor imagery, you can see all that moisture getting lifted here across the eastern parts of the U.S. So our pattern is what we call a blocking pattern, where it just doesn't allow weather systems to move from the west towards the east. So that low, it can't budge because there's high pressure over here in the Atlantic, not allowing it to progress and move out. Ultimately, the jet stays up towards the north. That upper low gets cut off from the main flow, so it just kind of sits there and spins, continuing to build up that humidity. So it's going to be air you can wear, and it's going to feel wet outside even when it's not raining and storming. And this should stick around through the rest of the week.
If you're just joining us, we're monitoring the latest here in the tropics. It may be a little early, but the tropics don't think so. Tropical storm Bret has just recently been formed, and it's interesting where in the Atlantic. It's highly rare, not completely unheard of, but it is rare this early in the season to get a couple of organized systems, especially a tropical storm in the main development region. Typically, you would look closer to home, like in the Gulf of Mexico or say off the U.S. seaboard. But sometimes, every now and then, you can can get the setup, and especially with the warm waters that we have seen in this part of the Atlantic, it has definitely allowed for quite a potent tropical storm to form. Right now, it's 40 miles per hour. It's still over 1,000 miles from any of the islands. But if you have plans, maybe you're taking a cruise or heading to the islands for your summer vacation, you do want to monitor this as we head towards the end of the week, especially by Thursday and Friday. We may have a hurricane on our hands. That's what at least what the forecast is calling for, especially for the middle and northern windward and leeward islands as we watch Tropical Storm Bret likely become a hurricane. And then beyond that, we'll have to watch the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. Chris and Jackie.
So if we have a hurricane on our hands, and if you're holding a ticket in your hands to a cruise in the Caribbean, what do you do here?
You might be going, is this such a smart idea? Well, maybe, maybe not. A cruise is a very appealing type of vacation, I think, because you put down one chunk of money and everything's taken care of and you don't have to worry about it. But we want to talk to marine meteorologist and cruise expert James Van Fleet to get some answers. James, thanks for being here. We've got newly formed Bret, and that might make a few people nervous. What can we do out of the gate as we plan a cruise type of vacation to help prevent any hiccups, so to speak?
Well, yeah, Jackie and Chris, thank you for having me on. And of course, perfect timing. As of 40 minutes ago, we have Bret officially named. Still some other invests that we're keeping an eye on. Here's the thing, and one of the reasons why I am recommending cruise vacations over, say, island vacations, if you book that this summer over the next 3 months to hit the islands, you go to a resort, you're going to get the weather you get. Whereas with a cruise, the ships can move. So while they're assessing, of course, the same things we are here, that you are as well up in Atlanta, the thing that I would encourage you for to stay with a cruise vacation, say over going to a resort, is the fact that if they see something heading towards a port of destination or call that you're headed to, they can move. Now, that will also mean that likely your plans are changing as now you're going to a different port. But the idea is that safety-wise, they can get you further away than if you had a vacation booked somewhere, again, one of those all-inclusive resorts. So with El Nino, as you know, we're in it. You've been tracking it as well. We are anticipating that the second half of the summer, with all that wind shear, there should be fewer hurricanes. So it is also likely a little bit better summer to head to the Caribbean. However, I would be watching those LA and San Diego departure ports if you're running down Baja California, as we do anticipate the second half of the summer, as you know, to be much busier with the Pacific.
James, you make a great point that the cruises, by design and definition, they're on boats and they can move, they can avoid the storms. But you also mentioned your plans. The itinerary may change. How flexible are ports really, and like, do they have enough options to accommodate?
Great question. And this in the Caribbean and the Eastern and the Southern, it's a lot easier to flip ports because another island is within reach. Now, keep in mind, of course, you're cruising, so it's not like an airplane where you just divert and you're flying at 400 or 500 miles an hour. It still takes a little bit of time because you're cruising at 20 knots and going slow. But I do like Central and Eastern Caribbean ports because there's so many more islands to pick from that you can actually make. The Western Caribbean's a little trickier because the actual ports that you can make, the Cozumels, the Costa Mayas, down to Belize, there's a lot greater distance to travel. So if you had to miss a port in those itineraries, there's a chance that those are just sea days and not ports. But that's okay. Again, another reason why I like ships, if you are held to a sea day or if there is weather in your port of call, you have a beautiful ship to enjoy. And you can go to the restaurants, the shows, the spa. There's so many options. And remember, you only unpack one time. So you get all these great destinations, but you've only unpacked your suitcase one time, which a lot of families love, especially if a lot of kids.
James, you're a good sell. We've got about a good minute left here. I want to ask you, outside of the obvious, like tropics, there are a lot of marine hazards, actually. We think about things like rogue waves. What else concerns you besides tropical cyclones?
So cyclones are always where I'm the most interested, of course, but the winter fronts always catch my attention, leaving out of the New York harbors, Boston, and areas where you can get what we call the north wall, which is when there's a strong cold front in the winter months. hitting that Gulf Stream, that very sharp temperature gradient can actually build up some rogue waves and massive seas. So while it is still a wonderful vacation, I'm a little more leery of leaving in the higher latitudes in, say, January and February. Maybe keep that more to the summer months where you are likely to have better weather sailing out of there.
All right, James Van Fleet, thank you so much for your perspective. Great chatting with you. Now, Jackie and I have to go start looking for cruises.
I know. I'm thinking Alaska cruise. I want to do a river cruise in Europe, maybe.
A lot of stuff.
Lots of choices.
Kayaking is my thing.
Running is awesome.
But her moderate to severe eczema would make her skin so uncomfortable.
Now I'm staying ahead of it.
Dupixent helps heal your skin from within so they can have clearer skin and less itch. Serious allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Tell your doctor about new or worsening eye problems such as eye pain or vision changes, including blurred vision, joint aches and pain, or a parasitic infection. Don't change or stop asthma medicines without talking to your doctor. Ask your doctor about Dupixent.